Finding the perfect resort for your clients can be frustrating and take hours of research. TA Toolkit solves that problem for you. We have over 700 items your clients request, plus you can search multiple destinations at once. You'll have a list of resorts that match your clients' needs in less than 10 minutes. Sign up today with the promo code WAVEPREP2024 for a 14-day free trial. TA Toolkit, it's about time.
Running a travel business can be overwhelming, but imagine if there was a single tool that helped you look professional, stay organized, was easy to use, and affordable. That's just what Travefy does. Travefy gives you the essential tools you need to look like a travel biz pro. Travefy is the most trusted system used by over 30,000 travel brands worldwide. So get started with a system that helps you get back to the joy of planning travel and run your travel business like a pro with Travefy.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Prep for Wave Week. Today is marketing day. So I don't know if we're your first or your last one for the day, but super excited. We've got lots of really great marketing experts lined up today for you. And today, Kristen is actually playing like three roles today. She is speaking. She is also a premier partner. And then she will be at our study hall session later this afternoon from 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern time. So if you don't have your study hall pass, all the links will be down below if you want to grab that and tune in more to Kristen and kind of troubleshoot some marketing. But today's session, or this session, I say today's session, but it's this because we have a couple sessions, is all about branding. And really it is about to help your brand feel a little bit more high end. But I also say kind of we're thinking about making your brand appear to those that you want to be working with and immediately repel those that you don't want to be working with. So without further ado, welcome, Kristen.
Thank you. So excited to chat today.
Yes, and thank you so much for all the things. I know we have kind of a full day here together.
Yes.
So we won't go too much into your background because I'll go ahead and link up. Kristen was actually recently on the podcast where we talked a bunch about websites a couple of months ago. So if you want to learn a little bit more about Kristen's background, is there anything popping up new that people should know about you or Inflow Design Co. coming up?
There's nothing really new, but if someone has no idea who we are a branding and website design agency, and we specialize in travel. So we do the branding part, which is like the logos, the color palettes, what your business looks like, as well as the actual website design. And we have done for you services as well as DIY templates. So all the templates we use for our clients, you can also DIY yourself if you prefer to do it yourself versus hiring us. But that's just kind of the basic gist in case someone has no idea who we are.
Yeah. And kind of like on that branding topic, because I feel like that's one of those words that not a lot of people actually understand. And I feel like it's hard to kind of like get a grasp because so much encompasses branding. Like it's not only visuals, but it's also like how something feels, its values, its culture.
Yeah.
So like, do you have a personal definition or like, how do you see branding?
I don't know that I have an exact definition, but how I would describe it off the top of my head would be it's the impression that someone has of your company. The first impression as well as the impression that they're left with. So there's so many things involved in this that will create that. The initial first impression a lot of the times is more visual because we are looking, right? It's kind of, I like to make the analogy of like if you were in a bar and you saw someone across the room and you found that they were attractive, you would lean into that interaction, right? If you were not, you would probably be not leaning into that, right? And then you learn more about them and you might be like, this person is not for me, or you might be leaning in even more. But usually initially we're drawn in by the visuals. So the visual side of your branding would be your brand colors, the brand fonts you're using, your logos, your imagery, everything that we're looking at is going to be the visual side. And then there's other layers to your branding, which will be your brand messaging, the whole client experience is a part of your brand. It's how you're making them feel when someone is doing a consult call with you, working with you, how you wrap up working with that client. It's how you're going to be remembered. So there's all these components that make up your branding. As far as my expertise is more so on the visual side, so
Mhm.
that initial piece to draw them in. But being a business owner, I have experience in so much more beyond that, because running a business, you want to be growing and nurturing a brand that goes beyond the visuals, because you don't want it to just be surface level deep, right? You
Right.
want to get in there with the connection in your messaging, with your company values of how you run your company and how you make someone feel working with you. So it's kind of a long drawn out definition of branding.
Yeah, no, because you're saying that, and I think about, DoubleTree, part of their branding is that at check-in, you get that warm chocolate chip cookie.
And I've had that recently. I didn't even know that was a thing. And
Oh,
she's like, "Do you
really?
want the cookie?" And I'm like, "The cookie? Of course, of course I want the cookie." And it came out of a drawer and it was warm. I'm like, "What is happening here?" I was like, "I'll take two. I have a kid in the car."
Yeah. Yeah, because I feel like that's part of the brand staple is that chocolate chip cookie. I feel like Olive Garden, you get the Olive Garden mints, the Andes mints at the end of the
Yeah.
meal.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of like some other companies, but I mean, like if you go on a cruise, some mass market, you're always going to get like a towel animal within your cabin.
Yeah.
Those are like the little touches that aren't necessarily part of like the visual aspect of the brand.
Yeah. Yeah. They're
Are there
all creating that like client experience. And when you're repeatedly doing certain things, you're kind of become known for certain things. And that can
right?
be in so many different areas, from the way that it looks, from the way that the interaction is, from the way that you communicate. You're creating that like memorable connection between your brand and
Mhm.
other people.
Yeah, which also makes me start to think, and I know this is kind of like a hot topic today for marketing day, is the difference between your own business's branding and supplier branding.
Okay.
What, because I feel like a lot of people are still in that mode of like, I just need to get all the supplier information and put that out there. But I know, like, if I see on, especially like somebody's social media, I'm like, you're just muddying up the waters if you have all these other brands on your
Like
social
the
media.
graphics that they provide and you just stick it on your
Oh,
profile.
yeah. And even like
Yeah.
sometimes I could even see, like, if on websites, people say, like, I partner with these different brands, which is helpful. I don't think like it's a necessarily like need to have. So it'd be interesting to hear your perspective on that too, is how much, like, where's the line between like your branding as a travel business owner and including or not including supplier branding?
I think the focus should be on maybe featuring the supplier as in the experience, and maybe it could be the beautiful resort that they have, or some luxury African safari that like they have images of that a lot of times they let you use that you're just not going to find yourself. Like
Mm-hmm.
using those assets as far as the photography of the experience is great, because those are stunning images. But when they're providing graphics that are with their brand colors, their fonts, their stuff, maybe it's a deal or something like that, it just it doesn't look like your business. It could
Mm-hmm.
be on a number of different people's profiles. So I think talking about them, featuring some of their stunning photography is great, but make sure you're the one being presented as the expert in whatever marketing content you're making.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's graphics on your Instagram, maybe you're making your own graphic that talks about that with your branding, because you should be representing your brand where they are secondary.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Right.
feel like their photos are amazing to use and to maybe highlight some of your partners, but that should be a piece of your marketing strategy. That's like one of the pieces of the much bigger puzzle of the marketing strategy, where,
Mm-hmm.
of course, I'm assuming you're still talking about the value that you bring to your clients as a whole. Why do they want to hire a travel advisor? What are all the things you're saving them from as far as their struggles? Like, what do you bring to the table? I'm assuming that all of those things are happening and we're not
Mm-hmm.
just posting suppliers.
Yes.
Yeah.
It better not be. You better not be.
So let's say you're talking about all these other amazing marketing pieces to showcasing the value that you bring. The supplier piece is like a small piece of one of those things.
Right.
Or it's fun to sprinkle in, but shouldn't
Right.
be your only focus. Is that answering your question?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I appreciate that, especially like from the branding perspective, because, and this came up in another session for marketing day, is there was a recent article by Travel Age West saying that travel advisors, 63% of travel advisors feel that there's not enough marketing resources that are out there. And it's kind of like, I feel like there's also a different line between like where you take ownership of your business and your brand and hiring out the expertise that's needed, because marketing I don't think is necessarily something that needs to be like, here you go, here's your marketing kit. Some things can be like that, and especially if you're working like with a branding designer like yourself, like you're going to get some assets in that partnership, but that's not, it shouldn't be totally reliant on the industry to provide that to
No.
you.
No, because you're just going to blend in like everyone else. If that was the case, then everyone becomes cookie cutter.
Mm-hmm.
So you are bringing your own unique perspective to your brand. That's what makes it stand out. That's what makes it different. That's what makes it feel like really authentic. So if
Mm-hmm.
you're wanting everyone to copy and paste you content, you're not creating that uniqueness to your brand.
Mm-hmm. When I think of branding, the immediate things that come up to me are colors and fonts. And I know a lot of people haven't like really nailed those down.
Everyone just wants a logo. I just need
Yes.
my colors and my logo done. I'm like, that's not all you need, but okay.
Yeah, I see that all the time. And then they'll go to Fiverr and they'll have a logo that looks like 50 other logos that I've
Yeah.
seen before in the travel industry. Whereas I feel like you can probably just get off by just logos and fonts at the bare minimum beginning, and then like start upgrading like once you know your brand a little bit better. I think like that's an interesting piece to touch on too, because when you're first starting a business, you don't really know exactly what the brand is. So for the
Yeah.
newbies that might be tuning in, what are kind of, I guess, some pillars or building blocks to figure that out?
Your brand is naturally going to evolve and like
Mhm.
shift over time. So it's not like if you pick something now, it's totally okay if in a few years you do a brand refresh. That's like natural for companies to do. I think some people put such weight on the branding sometimes, thinking it
Yeah,
has to last me forever. And I'm like,
right.
there's stuff that is outdated now for a reason. There's a reason why we are rebranding people. It's because
Right.
like things come in and out. And so while you want to make sure it's a good investment if you're choosing to invest money into it, it's naturally going to evolve over time. So if you're not really sure where it's going, your early stages, maybe you're not even really solid on your niche and you're being a little bit more general in the beginning, areas to focus in on would be, you obviously need to pick brand colors.
Mhm.
So I would pick ones that feel more timeless. I always like to mix in some colors with some neutrals. So
Mm,
it's not like overly colorful. There's a
mhm.
lot of different education on if you're DIYing colors, how to approach that. It's not just colors that you like. We do need to be a little bit strategic about picking the right types of shades and having variety in your colors so that they can layer together. But you're going to
Mhm.
need to pick some brand colors. It doesn't need to be a ton, but you're going to need to have a few solid colors
Right.
to do that. One thing to consider is what price point. This is kind of tying into our, I think it's supposed to be our topic. There's so many things. Luxury branding. Not everyone is wanting to market to a luxury industry, and that's fine. But think about your price point when you're picking things like fonts. And a lot of people don't think there's a connection between the two, but I definitely think there's a connection between if you're perceived as budget, mid-range, or high-end, and the types of fonts that you're picking. Certain
Right.
fonts feel a lot more luxury. And if you are like doing it a little scrappy at the beginning and DIYing, you can have a typographic logo. We don't need to make the logo overly complicated and overly fancy. You can be looking really professional and clean by just picking the right font for your name. It can be that simple.
Mhm.
Doesn't need to have all this fancy illustration. It can, but it doesn't have to.
Mhm.
And so understanding a little bit about typography and how to pick fonts that feel more high end, or if you're wanting to be a little bit more casual, which fonts feel casual but also professional. We don't want to pick fonts that feel too childish, that feel too old school, right? So I feel like having a little bit of education related to color to guide you to pick the right colors and then to guide you to pick the right fonts is a really good place to start. Whether you decide to DIY or not, everyone's in a different situation with how much they want to invest initially, and everyone has different skill sets. I have people that come in and they're like, absolutely, I'm not touching any design. Like, this is so worth my money to invest to have it done for
Right.
me. And other people are like, hey, I can dabble in Canva. I can make this happen. I can do a course to help me. Like, we have a brand your vision course that goes over a lot of the stuff that I was saying, like get educated about the fonts and the colors. There's resources out there to help you make the right choices depending on where you're at.
Yeah, and I feel like thinking about that too, you may want there's just so much variation that is possible, especially like with color. So you may want a red color. Red may or may not be a luxury color, but what if you go into like more of a maroon color? Or what about like the complementary colors? Because I feel like all of that, like the shades and then anything that you're complementing with, because you just shouldn't start out with one color, or should you?
I mean, you could,
Expert.
speaking of red, you could have like red, black, and white, and maybe throw in like a light, neutral, nudie color. I
Uh-huh.
mean, you literally could. You can do it. You can do anything and make it work.
Mhm.
Red as a background color is where it gets tricky
Mm.
because it's very in your face.
Oh yeah.
So this is where there are so many different shades and tones of red. You could go toward the maroon, a wine color, a deeper red, and you can, if you love that like pop of red, you just use it as like a button or
Mhm.
use it in little accent text so you get that pop of intensity. But
Right.
maybe it's not a background. So thinking about like how we use colors is really important.
Mhm.
All the colors aren't going to be background colors within your branding. The background colors become like the dominant feeling, but then you can bring pops of things in because you don't want it to feel too intense by
Right.
a background color.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like it's almost like you're waiting in line for something and then the person that's checking you out is like, "Hi, my name is Rita. I'm so excited to check you out today." Versus,
Yeah. And you also have to think about color psychology. Like stop signs are red,
yes.
caution tape is yellow.
Yeah.
And so we have like this built in, like we're relating that. And so picking the right shade and how you use it. Like I would never have a client have a bright yellow with like a block black lettering because it screams like caution tape. I don't think anyone ever wants that anyways, but like we want to stay away from certain things like that. But red, since we're on the topic of red, it's actually not as like common of a color that's used with a lot of our clients. People
Mhm.
tend to be more neutrals, blues, teals, like that type of nature color. So if you think about travel, the colors that we're seeing like out there. But red is just not as commonly used, but you can use it and it can like stand out for sure.
Mhm.
Another thing to note with colors is sometimes I see people get caught up like, but I see a lot of people using that color. It doesn't matter. It does
Right.
not, it literally doesn't matter what other people are doing because this is so true with like so many things that you're creating with your business, whether it's fonts you're using, colors you're using, a website template you're using, whatever. Like your
Mhm.
ideal client isn't out there looking at all of your colleagues' things.
Right.
They're just
Nobody's like,
naturally not. Like we
right.
are in these communities, so we're seeing all this content, and probably the algorithms are serving us even more of that content, but your ideal client's not looking at all of those things. So I
Right.
say like make the right decisions for you and ignore like the fact that other people might have some similar things. Like I know people have similar branding than me, I'm sure. I
Mhm.
just don't care to look.
Right. I feel like that's part of like putting the blinders on. Like you're just you have to do you feel confident in what you're doing. No, like devil's advocate to that, thinking about branding, are there any indicators or like warning flags that maybe your branding is not right or not producing the results that you want it to do? Like your income, your revenues not coming in the way that you want it to be?
It's a little bit hard to connect income with the branding
Okay.
because there's so many parts to the booking process that
Right.
could be affecting that. It's like when people say, well, I want my website to bring me in more clients. Well, do you ever share your website? Do you ever market your website? You know, if you're not sending people there, what good is a beautiful website? So there's so many pieces that go into clients being exposed to your company. Then there's the client experience of the consult call. What is that booking process like
Hmm.
that create the conversion of money? So it's a bit hard to make that like direct connection.
Yeah.
But I would say you would want to look at, does your branding represent like where you are now and what your ideal client would be attracted to?
Hmm.
So when it comes to price point, something I see regularly is a client that might have DIY'd in the past or they had their branding done in the past and it doesn't reflect where they are now. And they just tell me it doesn't look as professional. I'm selling, higher end trips now. I literally had this consult call or this talk with a client today. We are actually like in the midst of her branding. And then she had a baby and just, it was a whole, she had to put a big pause on the project because she was going through a lot. And when she came back, she was like, I've been noticing like my direction has changed, like even just taking a few months. And she's like, I want it to be feeling more high end. Before it was feeling very like soft and I wouldn't say mid-range. I would still say she was still like very classy, professional, but she wants to like take it like up a notch.
Okay.
And so there'll be clients that come in and maybe it's something that we had designed and now their client has evolved, or something they had designed and now it's evolved. You want it to match like where you're at as far as like price point, what types of clients do you want to book? What is your ideal client attracted to? Does it resonate with you? Are you proud to show it off? Does it just feel like it fits with who your business is now?
Right. I very much appreciate that you had mentioned that marketing is not the answer to everything. And like branding is not the answer to everything. Like it's not, if you have this type of brand, then you're going to get this type of sales. Because I think that's a common um myth with business owners, and this is not just in the travel industry. I think this is just business owners thinking that if they hire a social media manager, if they hire a branding person, if they hire somebody for email marketing, they're going to bring me in sales. And there are so many other components, like you were saying, like do you have sales training to close on a discovery call? Do people even want what you're selling or how you're presenting what you're
Mhm.
selling? That have nothing to do with the branding, because the branding can look spectacular. Your social media presence can be amazing. But if people don't want what you're selling, if people don't jive with who you are because you're not their person, that's what the disconnect is, and not necessarily in the marketing efforts.
100%. Yeah. Some people ask me that about the website side of things. And I'm like, I can't give you an answer that my website is going to create more business for you because I don't know if you're marketing your company at all
Right.
after this website launches.
Right.
I don't
There's
know
so
how your
many different
consults
parts.
go. Like they might inquire, but are they going to convert? I don't know. That's your job now, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I will never forget. I believe it was Vanessa McGovern of Gifted Travel Network say marketing is not linear. And I was like, what do you mean? Because this was a couple years ago. I'm like, what do you mean marketing is not linear? If you go to this event, you should be able to get these clients. And it's kind of like, looking back and looking at all the experience, I'm like, no, you just never know where like your next client is going to be, what kind of sale they're going to be. And you don't know so it's important, like that consistency in whatever marketing efforts that you're doing is super important. And a great foundational place really is the branding, which that kind of leads me to my next thought. Is you had mentioned that you have a client that wanted to really elevate her brand. So what's the difference? What's the difference between kind of like a mass market or a premium brand versus a luxury brand? Like how can you distinct, that's not a word. I'm waking up word like
Distinguish.
yes, that's the word. Between maybe this level to like this level, from like luxury to ultra luxury.
I would say there's a few aspects. Okay, so when it comes to the visual side of things, we would look at what fonts are we using? Do we need to switch up any of the fonts from what you're currently using to this new market we want to be in? You also really want to think about your type of luxury. Luxury does not look a certain way. High-end luxury does not look. Someone could be into sustainable wellness travel, and that's going to
Right.
have a much more earthy feel to it versus sometimes people think luxury is like black backgrounds, gold, and like this dramatic look. That
Yeah.
is not, it's just not true. So I would lean into like, what does your type of luxury look and feel like? But I would say consistently, we want fonts that feel professional and higher end. That's not going to mean it's one font. Like it depends on your area and what you want to be and what that would look like. Typically, we take back some of the color. So we wouldn't probably have a bunch of different colors. We might have one accent color, but the colors tend to be more on the neutral side. If you look at some really high-end brands, they tend to have a little bit more minimal and neutral branding with maybe some pops of color that they bring in. I think once you're a really well-known brand, I always think of like I don't know, Chanel or Louis Vuitton.
Right.
Probably the core components of their branding is very neutral when we talk about color, but they can do whatever they want. So they bring in these like crazy looking bags and do all this fun stuff, but the core base tends to be neutral. I'm not saying to go super high-end, you need to be neutral, but if we're bringing in color, typically it might be a softer tone, meaning not bright pink. We're probably not using bright pink. We might use a
No
soft
neon.
blush color or like a pop of like a rose color, for example. Um, we might not be using like in your face blue. It might be just like softer tones. It tends to be more that way. Every situation is a bit different, but I would say color, pare back on like how many different colors we're using and not have like super in your face or playful colors. So it's probably not creating the right vibe. Pick fonts that are going to have that higher end feel. Make sure all these choices are matching like your area of luxury because they are so different. Like who is your ideal client? Like what are they into? Let's think about all of that. It's not like necessarily what you like all the time. It's about what type of travel are you selling and what are those people attracted to. Another thing with like more high-end branding would be imagery. This is when I tell clients when it comes to their, we focus on the website, so that's what I'm always thinking about, but it could be your social media or whatever, website, social media, whatever. The quality of the images will be really important. And I always suggest bringing supplier images to the table for the website. The clients of ours that take the time to collect them from the suppliers, their websites always feel way more luxe because you just can't find stock photos like that. Whether it is a property or whether it is like something that I find difficult to find really good pictures of are like luxury safaris. When they
Yes.
bring that to the table or cruise, like river cruise boats or like really luxury cruise ships, it's not just like a carnival cruise.
Right.
You just can't find that in stock photos. And so if someone's wanting to be in that higher end, I say take the time to find the supplier pictures because it's really going to make an impact. This is where suppliers are helpful because they have your beautiful photography
Right.
to use. And that it just makes such a big impression with the visuals. I think too with the color, we don't really want to take away from the photos as much by too much intense color. Like let the beautiful photos really shine and be the focus. And then the messaging is a really big piece of this. Like what someone in a high-end luxury market, their needs and concerns are going to be different than someone who is like mid to upper range.
Right.
Like what are they actually struggling with versus, you've got to change the way that you're marketing and messaging. They do not care about saving money most of the time unless they're just really cheap and then maybe they wouldn't be hiring you.
Exactly.
So what are they concerned with? I know some people, it could be that privacy is a big concern of theirs. I had a client who they wanted to be able to go to these like luxury villas and have a private chef who could prepare kosher meals Like,
Mm.
I mean, that level of like detail about what they would be interested in is important to incorporate in the imagery, but also how you talk about helping them.
I love that you bring messaging up because I think that's a part that's easily and that's probably the one thing that's distracting people is that especially when you're starting in the business or you've been in for a while and you're kind of like, I don't know why things aren't going the way that I want it. It's probably because you're messaging to people who don't need your services. You're wanting to get like that either budget, middle ground person, but the person that's really going to invest in your services is going to be a premium, luxury, ultra luxury person. And they have different problems because, like, the family who's living on a single income is going to have who's living on a single income blue collar is going to be a little bit different than single income white collar. There's just so many different factors that make up who we are and like what we value. And it's
Mm-hmm.
very different. Like a luxury for somebody is the Disney vacation. A luxury for somebody else
Yep.
is that private luxury African safari.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of the times the saving time thing is valuable to everyone.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I just think you need to be really a little investigator
Yeah.
about really understanding what they want, like what's important to them, what are they coming in for? Um, what are the benefits that you bring to the table that they actually want? This is like when
Mhm.
people are promoting the deals, this much off on whatever, or oh, I don't charge a planning fee. Like someone who's like high end does not care about your planning fee. Like they just
Right.
want the end experience, the result without having to deal with any logistics.
Mhm. For somebody who has maybe gone through branding, worked with somebody before, now they're ready to like take it to the next level or specify even more what they're doing on either their visuals, the website messaging. What are some of the things that they really have to hone in or more specify when they're at that point? Like, my former brand is no longer serving me, and this is the new me, this is the new business.
I would say start with understanding the ideal client and then your messaging, because that like leads into the visuals.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you understand who the ideal client is. If you're redoing something, that means you already have a business and you already have clients. So that's a
Right.
great position to be in because you can rely on your experience of you probably hear a lot of the same things. I always say like pay attention on your consult calls with people. What are they saying? Why are they booking with you? What are they
Mhm.
asking? What misconceptions did they have that you needed to clear up? They're giving you perfect content. If
Right.
you don't have those clients yet, like maybe you're like, well, all the people that I have been working with are not actually who I want to market to, then you might need to be having conversations, like find ways to learn about people that are in that area that you want to be marketing to.
Mhm.
And I would say it comes back to what we were just talking about. Understanding them, what are their desires, what are their struggles, and then allowing that to inform the decisions.
Mm, yep. Mm. It makes me think of I went to an event last month. Wasn't that great of an event? But it was interesting hearing his perspective on the branding of the event because the branding was very important for this person and how he used brighter colors and bolder fonts because that's he wanted to part of his mission was to help people stand out more. And that's like it's interesting to hear like what people want from their brand and how it like comes to life in all of the visuals. So what like, I guess what types of words are you picking up on like when you do consults with people? And like is there a disconnect sometimes where some people might think that they want a light, delicate, but really what they want is something else. Like
Yeah, for
almost like
sure.
matchmaking.
Yeah, that's why like we always do beyond the consult, like if someone's working with us, we always do the questionnaire, but also a Pinterest board. And the Pinterest board is really important to me because a lot of the times we might interpret things differently. We talk about colors differently. We just use different terminology. And when I can see it, I'm like, okay, this is what they actually like.
Okay.
Where I had a client even, I was looking at her board and it was very like green. And she was telling me in her, I think she was asking for like teal or blue or like something in her questionnaire. And I'm like, this is what you're telling me, but this is what you're showing me. So we're going to go this route. And I had another client who I like presented, she said, I do not want teal. And so we are looking at this like emeraldy green color as one of her main brand colors. And then we were in the revisions and she says, do you think we can tweak the green to look a little bit more like this? And I'm like, that is teal. And she's like, apparently I don't know what teal is. I'm like, this is she thought teal was like turquoise, which are very different in the same family, but very different. And so it's really important when figuring out the right match to see what they actually are attracted to. And then sometimes people might like something and I just tell them, no, we're not using that. Because like if you want to give off this impression, that's not going to do it. So maybe I see aspects of like this font that they're liking and I'm like, at the end of the day, I'll give you what, if it's really what you want, I'll give it to you. But you need to know that's going to create this type of feeling. It's not creating the right feeling that you're intending for it to create. And some people just don't know. So that's why it can be helpful to work with a professional because we kind of know and can like guide the situation. But there's definitely times where I'll read their questionnaire and look at the board and I'm like, okay, let's definitely clarify some things because you're telling me this is what you want in words, but then I'm seeing this. And sometimes it's like figuring out the mix. Like, well, I want it to feel soft and feminine, but also bold. Okay. How do we do that? It could be that maybe you keep the background colors more light and airy, but maybe it's a font that has a bigger impact, or maybe it's like a pop of a color or something. Like there's ways, this is where like you create layers in your branding to create that own unique mix of like your version.
I love you mentioning the Pinterest board because I think when I rebranded, like that Pinterest board was like my word vomit on a Pinterest board to be able to like flesh out the different colors, the feelings, the vibe, the sense that I wanted to provide people on a certain brand or whatnot. So I feel like that's a brilliant tip that I don't think a lot of people have talked about. If you're kind of like not sure where to even start for branding, is start pinning a board and calling it my future brand or my current brand,
Yes.
whatever it
And
might be.
people overthink this, I swear. Like a lot of the time, not a lot of the time, but half the time maybe. Clients will be like, I'm overwhelmed by Pinterest. And I'm like, it's not about you curating the perfect board for me.
Right.
Like I don't
Right.
care about that. I only want you to just pin things that you find yourself attracted to.
Yeah.
Like don't overthink it. I was like, it's my job to look at it and find the connections. So don't try to pick the quote unquote right things. I just want to see what your taste is. And then you can go back and say, let's get rid of that. Maybe let's get rid of that. Like that doesn't really fit. But some people try to do it right. And I'm like, just pin what you're attracted to and then go back and look at it and see if there's like outliers you might be able to pull out and kind of hone it in.
Yeah. I think that's
Sometimes people are like, yeah, I was all over the place. I'm like, you're not all over the place. Like it's so obvious where this is going and they just don't see it themselves. Like there might be some variation, but usually there's an overarching theme of some sort. They just might not realize it.
Yeah, I think that that's the beauty of working with a designer, especially I am not a designer in any way. And so I feel like when I was doing that rebranding process, I know where the overwhelm is coming, but I think in the end it's kind of just trusting yourself and trusting in the process and trusting that the person that you've hired is going to have your back throughout the entire journey of whatever this branding or up level might be, because it's, I don't know, it's like it can be such like a fine delicate science almost but you don't have to do anything in the science. That's what people like Kristen and other designers are out there for, is that
Yeah.
they know the ins and outs, they know what's trending, and they know the needs from the types of clients that you're wanting to work with
Mhm.
as well.
Yeah. It's like you don't have people coming to hire you to plan a trip that know about all the supplier options, that know about like all the places that they should go in Italy for this trip. And they're like, I just
Mm-hmm.
need you to book it for me. Like they are wanting, they're sharing like their general desire, the outcome of this trip. And you're the one with the connections and the industry know to put together something that's going to create that for them.
Exactly. Yeah, I think about like when I was younger in college, because I felt like I used Pinterest a lot more back in college, and you
Oh,
do all
yeah.
the party planning, and maybe those people who have gotten married, you're designing your wedding and all that. You're not going to have all the elements that you have on your Pinterest board, but you kind of put things together to remember things and stitch together across what might become like the ultimate thing. And then, of course, in branding, all of this really comes to a visual form with your website, which I know we don't have time to touch on, but you have an amazing checklist that people can utilize for their websites. Can you share a
Yes.
little bit more about that?
Yeah, so what I've created for this free checklist is it's literally like every little thing you need to think about and consider and do when it comes to creating a website. So some
Mhm.
of it will be like creating your branding is one of the steps because you can't create a website if you don't have your colors, fonts, logo, that type of thing.
Right,
You're going to need to write your messaging for the website because without words, how can you finish the website?
right.
Then there's so many steps within creating the website to be aware of and like platforms to connect, making sure you do the mobile version, connecting your
Oh
domain
my
name,
gosh,
like
yeah.
so many different things that a lot of the time you don't know about until you're like, why isn't this working? Oh, I forgot to do this step or something like that. I've taken our exact process and put it into a checklist where either one, you could, if you're DIYing, it's a really good resource, or two, if you're planning to hire help, it's sometimes just good to know everything that's involved.
Hmm.
Some people, a lot of the time, people come to consult calls and are like, I just didn't know. Like, I don't know what's involved in this process. And so it can be helpful to get that too.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I feel like that is a gold mine of a checklist. I feel like, especially starting up, I was like, where was this when I needed it?
Yeah, and it's not like it's not like it's that huge, but you might look at it and be like, I don't know what all this stuff is, and that's fine. You just go like you figure it out one step at a time is what I
Right.
always tell people. Like, I remember when I started my company, like I had I could make my own branding, but there's so much I didn't know related to platforms and marketing and the aspects of running my company. And when you come to a professional like us, we kind of already know all that. So when we're like telling you we need all these things, it's like, oh yeah, there's like all these platforms and stuff to figure out. I'm like, you don't
Yeah.
have to have it all figured out perfectly at all. You just do like one little thing at a time with your marketing. You don't need to be on all the freaking social media networks at all. Like start with maybe your first one or two,
Right.
get comfortable. Like I still am not on TikTok. Like I can't even deal.
Same.
So you don't have to be everywhere. You do not have to be in all the places. You don't have to understand all the ins and outs. Like a lot of the times you just understand it as you literally are forced to set it up. It's pretty much
Yes.
how I learn everything is I just have to Google it.
Yes, 100%. It's funny because I am also not on TikTok, but one of our speakers today, Sarah Weiss, she is talking about TikTok and using it with Instagram because I'm like, I don't even know to start from square one, so I need to bring an expert for that.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely thought about getting on. And here's the thing with marketing too, is that there's always going to be people that are going to have their thing that works for them that you should be doing.
Hmm.
And that is fully valid. I'm sure it could work for you, but we can't do all the things at once.
Right.
So you've just got to be discerning in like what's the way that's most relevant for you and what feels like the best fit for you. If you're forcing yourself to market your business in a way that's unnatural to you fully, you're not probably not going to show up very well on there
Hmm.
anyways. So you don't have to be everywhere. You don't have to do all the things. All the experts have like, not experts, but like people out there who are promoting different marketing avenues, like the person who's talking about TikTok. If you feel like you're in a place that I'm ready to jump into this, they probably have so much valuable information to
Oh, yeah.
share. I've thought about doing this over and over. I never have time.
Yeah.
Like I can't deal with that. Like eventually I do know it's extremely valuable and would do really well for our company. I just like can't deal with it. So you just got to use your best judgment on like,
Right.
where am I now and what's the best fit for me now? Get a handle on that. And then we might like add on the next pieces.
Exactly. Well, Kristen, thank you so much for being here and sharing. Where are some places that people can tune into what's going on with you and Inflow Design Co?
So you can go to our website, inflowdesignco.com. You can find us on Instagram at inflowdesign.co.
Mhm.
And you will not find us on TikTok. Um, we're on Pinterest, but pretty much all our Pinterest content you can find on our blog. Our blog at the Inflow website has all of our client work on there,
Mhm.
which is great. We also have a bunch of extra resources and freebies on our website beyond. There's like some branding related freebies on our website. There's a website workshop. There's all types of goodies on the website. So that's a really good home base. It also gives access to our podcast. I have a podcast, Align and Amplify, and there's lots of great stuff on there too. So really the website's the place to go for all the things. There's
Yeah.
even a travel specific website. So you go to inflowdesignco.com and you select travel, and then you have your own website.
Mhm.
That's for travel.
Yeah, I'll make sure to link up everything at the bottom here. I do have to give super special thank you to all of our partners for Prep for Wave Week, our presenting partners, Travify and TA Toolkit, and then our premier partners, Inflow Design Co. Thank you, Kristen. And then also Lucia and Fine Travel. So thanks everyone for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this session. And there's a couple of more, so let's see you in the next one. Bye.